Welcome to Burning the Red Shirt podcast. I'm your host, Zach Tao. I'm here with Chris K and Andrew Katz again. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'd be better if you did the real intro instead of that phony corporate one.
Well, maybe next time. I got to work myself up to it. I don't know that I can do the whole ad read type intro. So no. Anyway, we got a lot of real unimportant things to talk about, but that's what we always talk about.
It is January. So
it is January, and we just kind of dig things up to talk about. So first things first, I don't know if many people know this, but we're doing another mock draft with CFF Jared. We're not going to go over the whole draft because that's his thing, but we will talk about some of the picks that we individually made and go from there. I guess I'll start with that because I did have the first pick.
Well, before we start talking about our picks, what's the context or the prism through which you're actually viewing this draft personally? Because Jared left it, I think, intentionally or unintentionally very ambiguous. I had to ask him to define how many points per reception receivers actually get. It was nice to have that helpful context. But are you drafting and making assumptions based on the idea that the season starts today, or are you kind of playing out in your mind like things that you expect to happen in the next 7 months? And because I think it's very open-ended.
I guess for me personally, I just kind of project as to what I think could happen and should happen come August. I mean, that's
yeah.
For me, for the mock, I feel like that's what I would always do.
Well, here's an example, I guess, of how you could think about it, right? So take Donovan Smith on Texas Tech, right? So if we're drafting today, I could make, and I'm operating under the assumption that basically outside of camp's going to happen and all that stuff, could I just assume that no other transfers are coming in there and he's going to be QB1? Or he's just going to or just battle against the guys that are on that roster? Or is the idea that I draft expecting Zach Kidley to bring in a quarterback that's more in line with the experience and the expectations associated with, I guess, what we expect to see at Texas Tech?
It's probably better to do it that way in a mock draft because then you could automatically say hey, this guy won, which we all know I never win. But I think realistically, I always just draft based on what I think is going to ultimately happen, which 7 months away is about as impossible.
I think I do too.
Yeah, I just don't know that you can, if there's guys that are on the roster now, how you can necessarily say, oh, I'm not going to draft him because I think somebody else comes in.
Right, that's the counter argument.
Like, what if nobody comes in? Then now he's there by default and you passed on him. I think, to answer your question, you draft what's currently there, but what you project out. Like if tomorrow somebody transfers in, then you change your outlook possibly. But
that's why all drafts should have money associated with them. So
Well, let me ask you, how this kind of goes with that. How long are you taking to make your pick?
You want my honest answer, or do you want I make it seem a little longer than it probably should? Because sometimes I'm like, oh, damn it, it's my pick, right? And what do I need? Okay, I need a wide receiver. And I look at what's been taken because I'm not following it pick by pick because it's in a chat, right? So I go back and see okay, he's taken. Okay, this guy must be available. I'm going to take him. Boom. And that's how I do it typically. I have a few guys lined up most of the time, and then if a guy goes in front of me, I wanted to take this next guy and Andrew took him, but we'll get to that. But how do you play it, Andrew?
I always tell myself that at some point I'll get rankings together, but it never really happens. Instead, I just try and figure out the guys I like, the guys I don't like, and the guys I never draft. I mean, I'm reasonably quick. I think it just in the sense that, especially here where we're working with, I think, a 9-round mock, right? So it's not super deep. And I don't know about you, but I always like to do the thing where I figure out my end game picks ahead of time. I know I have a better idea of what I want to do in round 7, 8, 9 than I do in 1, 2, 3. usually. So I usually come up to bat early on in the drafts, and I'm like, fuck, I have no idea what I'm actually going to do here. But then as we get later into the draft, like I feel like I have a more definitive picture. So I feel like I usually end up taking more time earlier on in drafts relative to the end of drafts.
Yeah. I definitely like I normally don't have quarterback first. That's usually how I play most drafts. I usually kind of go, skill position and then take quarterback later. And I did the same thing in this one. But I did grab a quarterback third round, and I felt pretty good about it, I guess, as far as mocks go.
There's the game within the game of who can be the last to draft a quarterback. I'm usually very good at it. I think I won this one.
Yeah. I'm usually pretty good at it. I felt like at the time, though,
it's a total pissing contest.
Yeah.
I am shook a little bit by some of the guys' draft strategies. There's no bench spots, and people have 2 quarterbacks. Oh, it's a 2 QB league. Oh my god, I was gonna say, what are people like? Who are we drafting with? No.
Yeah. Well, he said 2 quarterbacks. Like I assumed it was 2 quarterbacks start, but it's just 9 rounds. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it's backup and starter. So I could see how you would get confused there, because I mean, if that's the case, then I would take 2 quarterbacks a little earlier too. Now that I say that, but I guess
you're about to come up, you can get one.
No, actually, no. There's a couple quarterbacks that I'm kind of lining up, but I think will be there in a couple rounds. So I'm not really rushing to do it. However, I don't really know who I'm going to take next.
You went Travion Henderson first. Andrew, who would you have gone first?
Did you just steal that from the first draft and just copy and paste?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I was between, actually, I just said I don't take quarterbacks first. I was actually between him and Stroud first.
Yeah.
I don't really know why. I just felt like Stroud would have been a really good pick there. Because he started off kind of slow last year, but like after that, he just took off, and you could almost argue, like, I mean, he got in the Heisman race after that slow start and losing to Oregon, like, and then he just took off the rest of the way, and it was like,
no, he was unstoppable. I agree with you that, like, so we had a few quarterbacks going first round, but I don't think I'm taking any of them over Stroud. But
right.
The pissing contest being what it is, like last year, Corral was the only quarterback I was taking in the first round, because you gotta place your heart over your mind sometimes and just do what you want to do. Like Jared says, right? Let's have some fun. But who would I have taken? I don't know. Someone was saying that it felt like there's potential for there not to be a real consensus around 101 this year relative to previous years. And I mean, it really feels that way, right? Like you took Travion's fine. He's a rock star, but
yeah, he's awesome.
Is he at all head and shoulders or even close to it above any of the other guys that went in the first round?
I was actually
make an argument for 10 other guys at 101, no problem.
Yeah. When I got the first pick, I was like, oh, damn it. Like, what do I do with it? Like, I was kind of torn on who to take. So it goes along with what you're saying. There wasn't a guy like, you have to take this guy or else you're going to lose. But yeah, I was torn between him and then Stroud was the other one I was considering.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like who actually went the top 8 picks, like every single one of them was like legitimate. Like I thought that all of them could be like Bijan, Gibbs, Deuce Vaughn, Nichols, Ali. Like those are all studs, like absolute studs.
Yeah. In hindsight, I kind of wish I took Stroud over Ali, but Ali's cool.
Ali, you could make it a case for him too.
Oh yeah.
First pick, and it crossed my mind, but it's like there's no way I'm taking him as the first pick.
A Marshall guy first pick.
So I just went with more of a safe option, which I don't know why. It's a mock.
It's a mock. It's a mock draft in January that we have no money on.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to like at least keep like start off the draft like, all right, let's just status quo, let's just get into this thing and
reestablish your street cred for a couple rounds.
right. And then I take we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But anyway, we all know who I took first. Chris, were you next of the
I went Gibbs 5th.
Okay.
From Alabama. I mean, the guy is just incredible. He's so good. I forgot that he was on their team. And I mean, it's hard not to, right? Like he's obviously not Najee size, but he can run very well. And he's just as good, if not better than Najee in the passing game. So why can't I get that? It's going to be good game scripts the entire season. Their receiver core is like, not as good as SMU's. So there's a level there that maybe they run it more. Brian Robinson was a little underwhelming, I feel like, stat-wise for a while, but then he had monster games.
Well, they changed the offense. They changed the offense when the receiver started going down. Instead of finding a new receiver, they said, hey, let's run the ball. Right? Like, that's kind of what they did.
Wild idea. So, yeah, I mean, Gibbs, I feel like Gibbs is between Gibbs and Vaughn, basically. I'm curious, though, with Lew Nichols, I was thinking about him. Is there any concern that he doesn't average 40 carries a game like he did this past year?
Yeah, I'm not taking him, I don't think, at all this year, if this is anywhere near where he's going.
Yeah, kind of feels like they should go back to their old ways, right? Like there's no reason not to.
Presumably, is Kobe Lewis back?
I can't imagine he went pro after.
He hasn't portaled yet, right?
I haven't heard any portal.
Yeah, I don't think he has. Like we've seen the top for Lew Nichols. It's only down from here, and probably materially so.
4 more years of Nichols. That's all I want in my life.
I was looking to see if Kobe Lewis was gone or not, but nothing's really popping up. Anyway, but yeah, I think you're right. Like Lew Nichols at the price that he's going to be going at, I don't think you can grab him. If you're gonna, do you feel comfortable if you had a first round pick, even late first round, are you going to touch him?
But
over some of these other people is what I'm saying.
Would you be surprised if he went 101 in the draft?
I wouldn't be surprised.
No,
you would or not?
I would not be surprised.
I agree.
I think there's going to be some redraft leagues where he definitely goes first, just because. I mean, there is a shot where he has the best upside of any running back. Like consistent, like his floor would be like 34 fantasy points. Like it's hard to stop that. Yeah.
And another thing about what the question you asked earlier about this, Andrew, is how you approach a mock draft. Like I'm in the mode of dynasty a lot of times, so I have to get out of that mode and say, okay, I'm drafting this year and that's it. Right. Okay. Whereas like if you say, okay, if you have 2 players, one's a sophomore and one's a senior in a dynasty league, you're like, you know what? I'll probably lean toward the sophomore if they're both equal, right? On skill, you're going to go to the younger player more than likely. In this, you don't. Like you just grab the best player regardless of year. But anyway, I wanted to throw that in. So then now I guess, Andrew, who did you take with your first pick?
Rasheen Ali from Marshall.
Yeah, I really like him a lot. I didn't feel good about taking him first.
I mean, I'm sure you can make a lot of the same arguments against him that you can make against Lew Nichols, but I just feel like there's a higher likelihood that they continue to build the entire offense around him. They'll the lone prayer really outside of health, as is the case with all college football players, right, is that the offense can be functional with Henry Colombi coming in to play quarterback. Like I don't think Grant Wells was very good, but Colombi is really bad based on everything we've seen at Utah State and Texas Tech. But did you see who Marshall's appointed as OC today?
No.
Clint Trickett?
No.
Yeah.
The OC? Is that a bigger jump than Timmy Chang in the head coaching job?
No,
after being a receiver coach.
Apparently, Trickett was like wide receivers coach at Marshall last year. So that their OC just dipped for where'd he go? Was it Memphis? Marshall in Memphis? I think that's what it was. Yeah. So they just bump trick it up. I mean, so that, I mean, continuity, that's great, right? Presumably. But I feel like there's less of a concern with Ali having the materially split carries than Nichols, for me at least. I mean, he was a monster in the passing game, right? Was running for 100 plus most games, so many carries. And when they got down to the goal line, like he was, it felt like they would just like their hurry up offense was just get to the goal line and give it to Ali. Like that was the goal. Like we only want to score if we can get Ali the football. Like I would love to know what red zone carries looked like for him, because it felt like he was getting like 5 to 10 every single game, just ridiculous amount. And I mean, obviously we see from the amount of touchdowns he scored that probably checks out, right? But it felt like so many of them were short red zone type touches. I don't know how sticky that is, but that role, I mean, especially on an offense that should be able to move the football, presumably, right? Like they shouldn't be just totally miserable and playing in Conference USA and really just lacking a lot of skill position talent around him. Like hopefully that can translate from year to year in terms of if he has that role of just being the team's target in the red zone area, that
All right,
we can roll over more touchdowns for him.
To answer your question, he had 66 carries for 208 yards and 18 touchdowns in the red zone.
How did you find that so quickly? I would never know. I wouldn't know where to look for that.
CFBstats.com.
Nice.
66 red zone carries.
Sounds like a lot.
208 yards, 18 touchdowns. Yep. Yeah, it breaks it down. You can get like situational carries when they're winning, when they're losing. You know.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's a good site.
Not trying to like pump them up or anything, but anyway, it is a good site.
Maybe they'll sponsor us.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? All right, so I guess now we move to the second round, and it comes back around. Andrew, who did you take with your second pick?
Good question. Xavier Worthy, Texas. So I guess I'll post my picks to Twitter afterwards so everyone can see the beautiful color coded scheme we have here. But my daughter would be proud of me that we talk about our favorite colors all the time and point them out to each other in day-to-day life. And mine are blue and green, which maybe that is why I've gone blue, green with each of my first 6 picks. Running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver. But I went with Worthy at 205. But I think you could make an argument for him late first round. They added talent at wide receiver, lost Josh Moore, I think they added Isaiah Nayer, right? So Nayer's sweet, but I expect Worthy to continue to pop. I mean, I have him in our dynasty league through no cause of my own. I just followed what people were tweeting about him and was like, this guy sounds awesome. Let's snag him in the middle of the first round last year. But I had no idea he was going to be that good. Like, I'm not the biggest freshman guy in terms of like scouting all that stuff, and more or less I'm going to luck into it. But relative to the other second and third round picks that we saw after him, and just kind of looking at it now, I don't really have any reason to feel less strong about Worthy. I mean, I think he's the best of the wide receivers that went after him, and I want a receiver there, so feeling good.
A.T. Perry, would you have taken him over Worthy?
No, I think I would have gone Worthy.
I probably would have gone Perry.
That's fair.
Are you buying Texas's offense?
I saw
Andrew hates Texas. Let's get that out there.
Yeah, I do, but I like Bijan and I like Worthy. But I saw an argument that this is effectively Quinn Ewers' true freshman season in essence, right? So maybe we should evaluate think about Texas through that prism in terms of how smoothly and effectively we expect that offense to operate. That's the primary thing that I'd have to consider if we had real material money on the line here. Like, could this thing kind of collapse if Ewers isn't as good as we think he's going to be right out of the gate? Hudson Card looked awful last year, right? And Casey Thompson's gone. So, I mean, I would love to see Texas fail. That would be, I would love that personally. But I mean, obviously that would kind of be a real drag on this team.
I think I have a bias against Ewers because everybody loves him so much and the hair and stuff. And it's just like, it sounds awful, but I kind of want him to fail.
Like, isn't it possible?
Like, I don't know an 18-year-old, but I want him to fail. But I mean, it's when someone goes all in on like when people go all in on like some freshman that's not proven at all, because obviously they're for true freshmen. Right. I tend to be a hater. So
I'm kind of there with you. Like when I saw him go, I'm like, man, as good as he may be, I don't think I'd make that leap.
What part did you hate skipping the senior year?
I don't hate any of it from what he did. I think he made a great decision. He made money. He got to Ohio State.
What part did you hate? But what part did you hate him for, though?
Oh, everybody is all over him and loves him so much and is like sharing videos of.
I don't think it's hating him as much as hating
the
community.
Like the weird notoriety and love for him because he throws sidearm with a mullet. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the problem is, have you seen him throw a football at all? Have you watched any highlights?
Yeah.
He looks fucking awesome.
I mean, right.
I got to edit that out. Thanks, Andrew.
Right. It'd be interesting. I mean, he went to he made a bad decision. We talked about this last week. Bad decision. What are you doing going to Ohio State? Like,
yeah,
he could have started last year probably at 60 schools. And he went to the place he was guaranteed to basically not start.
Right.
But I mean, he could be amazing and easily shove in my face. It's not that I don't think he's any good. I just tend to hate on people when they get all this crazy love. But
I hear you.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
My second round pick was Dwayne McBride from UAB. I was thinking about just keeping an Alabama theme for the whole draft. Then that quickly faded away when the only other school is Auburn. So, I mean, he just was awesome for me last year. Touchdown machine. I don't know why they did this whole Jermaine Brown thing at the beginning of last year, but they did.
And you know why, don't you? He fumbled twice week 0.
But that was like, there was this vibe the whole offseason that was like Jermaine Brown was going to be like a great addition and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. That feels weird.
Yeah.
And so it ended up working out because I got McBride and worked out in the Dynasty League. But, I mean, touchdown machine. Why not? Running back feels safe on points.
Second half.
But, yeah. Who would you have rather taken, Andrew, McBride or Zach Charbonnet?
Probably Charbonnet. Plays on the West Coast. I get those late points. Chip Kelly offense. It's fun. Him and DTR just playing a 2-man game all year. It's good.
That's a great segue into my pick.
More my speed.
Yeah. So anyway, I picked Zach Charbonnet, the last pick in the second round. And I'm feeling even better about it since Andrew is endorsing it. So
it's an auto West Coast choice. I mean, if it's West Coast, he gets the bump, you know, he gets that bump.
Right. But no, I did feel that it was a shock that he kind of came back, right? Like it was just like a shock, but it was he did come back and he had a great season. So now we expect it. We need a Heisman type season now. So that's why I took him there.
They're going to bring in another running back probably.
Oh, right? I'm sure they will. But as it stands today, I think, you know, he's appropriately picked there. So then I come back around at 3-1 and I took Sam Hartman, quarterback from Wake Forest. Honestly, like all the other quarterbacks I had lined up, like I'm kind of regretting that pick. Not that I don't like him. I just feel like there were other quarterbacks that I could have waited on and gotten. How do y'all feel about that?
I like him. I mean,
I like him fine. I felt like there's some value at quarterback this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of good quarterbacks, but he killed me last year in DFS. I just kept fading him, and he kept scoring like 45 fantasy points at 10K, and it was like my mind's about to blow. Like he was unstoppable. So I think he'd be a fun guy to get like stack in a best ball league. Get him, and then get one of Perry and another Wake Forest guy. That would be like a fun, crazy high upside combination.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually looking at just his raw numbers last year. The rushing touchdowns was what jumped out at me. 11.
Damn. Yeah, he was a monster.
Yep.
But no,
I went Will Rogers, so I do like the quarterbacks here, and then Hooker went right after him, and I love me some Hooker.
yeah.
Who am I stacking with Rogers in this next pick or two of mine? Who should I go with? Is that Polk?
Dude, I don't think you can in like round 7 or 9. I don't think you're actually stacking. Like Jared and I would tell you Justin Robinson because he's an Ugga man coming over. What's his name? So I think Malkeith transferred, right? I like Tulu Griffin. I think I can't remember if I cut him or not in our dynasty league. I've had him for like 3 years, and he finally started to show some life down the stretch this year. But so one of them would be my pick, and or Ra Thomas was kind of sweet the last couple of games as well. But like none of those guys, I don't think you could take them in.
No, I thought Polk might have been stayed, but he didn't.
Nah, he did.
If he had stayed, I would say definitely think you could.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's always weird when these high flying offenses have to replace a bunch of dudes, because then it's like you get in the whole thing where you're buying Austin Williams for no reason.
Well, the problem with all these offense, or the challenge with those offenses, right, is identifying if it's going to be the version of the offense where everybody eats or nobody eats, right? Because like Leach loves to do that. I think Leach is the one where like there's the full 2 deep of 5 receivers, everybody gets snaps, right? I think it's him. But some of the offenses that go nuclear, just the same 4 receivers are on the field all the time.
Oh, yeah, no, they rotated a bunch because Jaden Wally had a great freshman year.
Yeah,
he kind of got hurt in the spring game, and then people were still drafting him high, myself included. And then he ended up like being that second tier, and he always got like 4 catches for 40 yards as a touchdown.
Yeah,
which is not the worst, but like where you were drafting him, that's not really all that thrilling.
Definitely.
Yeah. So in 9 rounds, you're not even touching that. Right.
I don't think you can. Yeah, I think Andrew's right.
Yeah. All right. So you took Rogers there. Now, Andrew, who did you take with your 3rd round selection?
I took Alton McCaskill. I feel like right around here is when running back starts to drop based on what we've seen. There's definitely some good ones taken after, but I was looking at the board and I was like, let me get a monster RB2 and just crush this pick. And I couldn't find anyone that I absolutely loved. Like if Zach Evans had made it to me, like, let's go.
I considered taking Evans instead of Hartman and going running back. But I was like, no, I can't do that.
I was between McCaskill and Shipley, and like Shipley, I think he probably exceeded my expectations in terms of raw output of stats this year, but I expected like more long touchdowns, more badassness in the passing game. And it felt like he was just like 5 to 8 yards a carry, do that for 15 carries, alternate with pace every other possession, catch a couple passes. Like it was a little more boring and less explosive than I expected going into the year. So I don't know. It was a little bit of a buzzkill, but I don't know what I would do if I could go back and take a different running back. There's a couple guys maybe that are a little more interesting, but McCaskill
weird area
badass as a freshman too. Like after taking over that job like 3 or 4 weeks in. What were you gonna say, Chris?
I said it's a weird area. Like I feel like running back is definitely a drop off, And then I ended up taking a receiver, but like receivers got weird too. You start taking these guys that are like probably slotted into that spot that's replacing like a superstar type position. So you get in these weird spots. I mean, McCaskill was a touchdown machine, right? So that would be like my worry is that, but it's also Houston. Like they're going to put up points. They got good players. They're going to move the ball. So like him scoring 15 plus is completely doable.
They're not like we associate Holgerson with the air raid bros, but they're not a real air raid team. Like I feel like that they never throw the ball around that much. And McCaskill is not like he caught passes this year. So I think he's pretty game script independent. Yeah, he scored a lot of touchdowns, and maybe there's some luck associated with that. But if you were to ask me which true freshman was more impressive between him and Shipley, I would say he was, and that's who I was flipping a coin between.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. So then now, Andrew, comes back to you. Who did you take in the 4th round?
I went with Dante Cephas, and I feel good about that one. I think Kent State's offense doesn't really miss much of a beat with Crum gone. And like that, the challenge with Kent State will forever always be, right, that if you look at their non-conference schedule, there are not more than 2 or 3 more ridiculous non-conference schedules every year. Like I have FBS schedules turned on for push notification, so I get updates every time a team adds a non-conference game, and they just scheduled like 3 for 2024, and they're doing the same thing they do every year. 3 just horrific, like Power 5 or really, really good G5 schools, and then an FCS school. Like, and so you know what you're getting into when you draft Kent State, right? You pray that maybe 1 or 2 of these powerhouse schools that they're playing in non-conference play are more offense and defense, and it can kind of shoot out. They're still not going to win the games, and then things just go off in the MAC, and hopefully you've hung around with your team and kind of seen through that non-conference slate without things getting too dicey. But Cephas was the dude in that passing game last year. I think that he ends up dominating target share again. The only other 2 guys that really did anything right were, I think, that dude Abram, who I think he was a 5th-year senior last year. You never want to assume anything about eligibility in the year 2022, but I think he's gone. And Poke, who I burned a bunch of money on last year, both in DFS and in best ball. He's back. He was hurt like all of last year, and that's why he sucked. But I mean, that maybe he cuts a little bit into Cephas's targets, but like Cephas, they target Cephas on screens. He is the deep shot dude who gets like in that offense. It's like half the plays are. More than half the plays are handoff to the running back or just throw 40 yards down the field, and he's that 40-yard down the field dude. So I love him as my second receiver.
It's either like a 1-yard pass, a 1-yard, like it's like a rush attempt, or like you said, like a bomb. They what an incredible schedule. At Washington, at Oklahoma. Then they play LIU.
My dad's alma mater, Long Island.
And then great color scheme for LIU, the Sharks. And then they play at Georgia. Like you pretty much can't play him 2 weeks. Like you pretty much can't play him week 1 or week 4.
You pray the Oklahoma one's a shootout, I guess. And
you could you could swing that one.
Yeah, Washington sucked last year. Maybe they suck again this year.
But their defense, I felt like their defense was good enough. In like week 1 against Kent State, don't give Washington 6 months to prepare for Kent State.
Yeah, they were really good in week 1 against that school that didn't even play last year, and that they lost to some FCS school in week 1 last year. But
it was like 10-9 though.
Montana, right?
You make a good point. Yeah.
So just saying.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at just Mac's schedule, like he's going to be an elite performer. It's just the typical Kent State. What are they thinking besides paycheck? I went Milton Wright. I felt weird. This felt like a section where all the good receivers were gone. Like it felt like I'm now in this, like I had said, like I'm in this zone of like who is replacing someone that was really good last year, and that would be Milton Wright and David Bell, right? Like Wright had good games, so I figured why not? I mean, Purdue's got a lot of similar things going on offensively, which is nice. I'm not too concerned about the receivers that played in that bowl game, so needing a receiver, that felt like the easy one.
I think that's a solid pick for sure.
I'm a little worried about taking Milton right there because they got. So you said you're not worried about Bronk Thompson. Maybe the knee surgeries didn't go that well. Both knee surgeries that are pending apparently, right? Maybe they don't go that well. He is coming back though, and then they brought in Tyrone Tracy and Elijah Cannon. I mean, we haven't seen anything from Cannon, right? Your boy Elijah Cannon.
I mean, if you can't beat out some of those Cedric Jackson and some of those guys at Auburn, like I mean,
I like Tracy,
I think so. I think some of the I think some of that was off-field stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily on-field stuff.
Yeah. Tracy's cool.
Yeah.
I
don't think as of today that's a bad pick though. Like
I think they do enough. They do enough passing that even if he's receiver too, that's fine.
All right, so then now we get to my pick, and now we can say this is a bad pick.
Now it gets heated.
Now it's getting good. So I took Mitchell Tinsley, the transfer from Western Kentucky at Penn State. A lot of that obviously is production this season, right? Like you're expecting that, okay, he's going to transfer. He's going to start, and he's going to be a productive receiver for them. Maybe he's not what he was at Western Kentucky. Probably won't be, but in January and he's transferred to Penn State, why the hell not, right? I'm sure you guys disagree.
I have reasoning in my head to why Andrew would not like him at Penn State, and I want to see if he bites. Go ahead.
Isn't it just that a question of if you need? I feel like you need him to be the number one receiver because the idea that Sean Clifford is going to support 2 or 3 receivers is really questionable to me.
Very questionable.
Yeah.
So if he's Dotson, that's a good pick. I think that situation is very interesting. Looking at the first mock, like how would you rank the receivers, Andrew, between Washington?
I like Parker Washington. I think he's good.
You like him best between
the other dude,
Lambert Smith?
Lambert Smith looked good in the bowl game too.
So Jared chimed in with a comment. Did you happen to see it on Canyon and Tracy? He says neither of those guys strike me as immediate impact players for Purdue.
I like Tracy. I mean, we've seen 3 good plays of Canyon in his entire collegiate record at this point over 2 years, right? Like he was sweet in whatever bowl game you guys one of your teams, Auburn, kind of slid into at the close of the 2020 season. And he went, what do you do? Like 380 and had one long touchdown. So maybe we jumped the gun. Maybe we shouldn't have taken Mike's word for that he was going to be the Auburn WR1, right? So that one I can understand. I like Tyrone Tracy. I think that it's been a couple of years, right? So like last year he didn't do anything really. He had a couple of receivers just kind of ascend over him, but in both 2019 and 2020, he flashed and had some really nice plays in the Iowa offense. Like it always felt like we were hoping for, what was that guy's name? Was it Brad Smith, the Iowa receiver? Like us DFS lunatics were always waiting for Smith to go down so Tracy could come in and actually get the playing time that he deserved. And I think that sitting on the bench for 2019, 2020 probably rotted his brain a little bit. Ferentz wasn't willing to deal with it for 2021, backburnered him, and now he's out the door getting a fresh start. And I think he comes in and has an opportunity to crush it.
Fair enough. I just wanted to address the question that was there before we got too far.
A
good host will do that.
All right, so we talked Tinsley. All right, so then I come back around with my next pick, and I took Dante Wright from Colorado State. And I feel pretty strongly about this one. Like, you could argue that he could go with the pick before, but I knew I had 2 picks. But I think he's probably the best receiver in the Mountain West today. Would that be a pretty fair statement? You guys don't have it.
I mean, there's an argument that he's not the best receiver on his own team.
It's possible, but the offense is going to support whoever they are, right? Like Jay Norvell coming in changes the whole offense.
Oh yeah, it's air raid season, baby.
Dazio,
air raid.
Dazio basically Norm Chow'd that offense.
It's true.
What a hire. What were they thinking?
So I feel like in the sense of air raid, like that should be a really good pick.
I mean, he had great seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, he opened his career with a couple great seasons, so I don't hate it, but I don't know. This is that whole, like I said, it's the weird situation of who slots in where, and you got all these moving pieces. We're 7 months away.
Can we make assumptions based on who Carson Strong like to target at Nevada? Like, can we make assumptions about what type of play, how that will translate to a different quarterback in the same system with different receivers? Like, there's a lot of assumptions to make there. All we know is that they're going to chuck the ball all over the place.
Yeah. Got another question from Jared. Again, I think he's the only one watching. He says, I agree. If Tinsley takes over at X and gets the love Dotson got, it's an excellent pick. But does that overtake the chemistry Washington and Clifford have developed over the years? So you're going.
I mean, I feel like
we don't go into that.
I feel like chemistry in college football might be a little overrated. I mean, like, guys are open, right? Like, they're not like running a certain route halfway through the route because of a hit pocket showing from the DB and then the quarterback moving accordingly. I think ultimately you pick Tinsley if you think he replaces Dotson and you think that them having 3 above average to, receivers doesn't hurt them. You don't take him if you think they just spread it all out, and especially if he doesn't get the Dotson spot. So I don't know. I mean, that stuff is interesting.
That's one of my favorite things about college football, though, how we sometimes know that in a certain system, like a letter of the alphabet is the most targeted position. You had that at Baylor for mad long. Gundy's system has it at Oklahoma State. I guess the Penn State one does too. I think that's what.
Is that like a real thing though? I guess it kind of is though with like Allen Robinson and those guys. Were they all the same position?
I think it's more the coordinator. I can't pronounce his name. Chich or whatever his name is, right? I think that's the Penn State OC. But
why can't it just be I pick out the best receiver and we just throw it to him every time? Like, that's legitimately an offensive game plan.
It's either A, B, X, or Y, right? Like that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, no, I just in high school, I remember we had receiver positions. We had X, we had O, we had Z, and we had Y, right? Like those were the 4 positions. Yeah. X was always in our playbook. It was always like if it was spread right, the X was on the right side. The O was always on the opposite side. I'm just giving you
like Dotson moved around enough, right?
Now, so we learned like one position in high school. Like you were either an X, you were either an O, Z, whatever, right? Where these guys, they learn all of them. So I don't really know if the X necessarily matters. I
don't think wanting to hang my hat on Clifford is a good option, though.
Yeah, he scares me.
That's fair. Another question. Dante
Jared
Wright.
Again?
It's not really actually a question. It's just it's a comment. Dante Wright. Yes. Dante Wright.
Let's make sure that we didn't have a second listener.
He's already the most dynamic player on that roster and a head coach that improves his chances to get the ball more, and he'll be excellent. I agree. 100%.
So this was just about validating Zach.
Yes. You did it earlier.
Yeah. That's what bad hosts do, Zach. You did a good host thing, and now you've turned to a bad host thing.
Hey, you know what? I'm learning. Okay. Now we're in the 5th round. Chris, who did you take?
Corey Rucker, Nate's guy. Nate nailed it. I mean, 55. I think he had like 55 catches, 900, like 980, and 8 touchdowns, something like that. Is like a young guy in that offense. James Blackman tried to just ruin it. I don't know. Upside's always there in that offense. I mean,
But James is going to have another opportunity to ruin it this year. No, isn't he? Like, what's his name? Lane Hatcher's gone.
Hatcher's
So
gone.
I've penciled James Blackman in as Corey Rucker's quarterback. How do you feel about that?
I think he's got another year of chemistry with him, which is nice.
No.
If you're not playing both sides of it in college football fantasy, then you're doing it wrong.
That's true.
Okay.
Use it to suit your argument. That's good.
I mean, okay, so like let's look at the other receivers that we're taking after. Okay, Jaden Reed and Parker Washington and Rashee Rice. I wouldn't take Rashee Rice. I wouldn't take Parker Washington. So basically, it's I rather Jaden Reed. I don't know. That felt a little steep for a Michigan State receiver, to be honest. But I like Jaden Reed.
Yeah, he took over some games this
You
year.
know what I've noticed too in this mock, like without revealing everything, like there's so many. I don't want to call it bias, but I guess that's what it is. It's a Power 5 bias, right? The guys that are big on big teams get a lot more hype, a lot more love than maybe they will when it comes down to August when we're actually drafting, and those guys emerge from a Troy or wherever, right? That come out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll take him, but you wouldn't necessarily take.
See, that's how
Reed.
you know Andrew is legit, because he's taken 1 out of 6 are big name guys.
Right.
And you could consider Texas not necessarily big named anymore.
Right. Has been.
But yeah, on just a general note, like it seems to be more Power 5 driven.
Part of it
than
is
anything.
information, right? Like
Yeah.
there's
What's available? What's out there?
That's more kind of what I mean. Like it's they're more open about who's coming in, who's there, where they
more
stand.
coverage on them.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So you took Rucker, and now Andrew, you took.
Titus Swen from Wyoming. I mean, we saw the mass exodus of all the good players at the skill positions leaving. Wyoming, headlined by our boy Levi, my boy Levi, our collective boy Levi, and Nair gone as well, and Valladay off to Arizona State. So they brought in Andrew Peasley, who doesn't seem particularly good from Utah State, but I mean, it's not like this team trotted out Sean Chambers at quarterback, who I mean he comps well to Peasley, I think, in terms of what they can and more aptly cannot do as quarterbacks. So if they could turn out 1,000-yard running backs with Chambers at quarterback, I think they could do it with Peasley at quarterback. Valladay's gone. Trey Smith, I don't think has another year. I think year 7 was the last year.
You can always get another somehow.
Yeah, but so
Chip.
Gwen should be the centerpiece of that offense, an offense that is really like Craig Bull must be so happy that Nair's gone and they don't have to throw the ball anymore, because now they can actually run it 80% of the time.
Yep.
You can be completely right. I would be worried about the mass exodus of talent, although that coach can win 9 games with anybody, right? And then I would just say that you could, not that you made it's not a bad pick, obviously. It's January 31st. But you probably could get away with waiting on him. Like, I don't think I would have ever
he didn't go in
him.
the last draft. Chris from C2C said that he was lining him up, but I don't know. I kind of thought about what running backs were available. So part of it is, a big part of it was, there's 9 rounds, right? I'm planning on winning the QB pissing contest, so I'm not taking QB yet. I have a controversial tight end pick lined up for later on, so I'm like, and I'm doing blue green, so I'm like, it's time for a running back, and I only have 1 running back slot left, and I was like, I like Swen.
Gotta make it count.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm with you. I'm curious to see who the tight end pick is.
It's
too bad it's not going to break.
The draft might end. Yeah, it's going to end the internet.
All right. So coming back around, Andrew, You bastard. Who did you take?
Dude, Stephon Cobbs. I don't understand why he's there. Your boy, who's your boy? It's both your and Chris's boy, Octavius Evans, the clear WR1 on Boise, declared for the draft, right?
Yep.
For the NFL draft, I think he said that. And Shakir is gone.
Yep.
My boy Riley Smith doesn't seem like he's, even if he's back, like it just another one of my brilliant tight end galaxy brains that didn't really come to be. So all that it needs to happen for Shakir or for Cobbs to go nuclear is just stay on the field. Like, was this what happened with him? And was he at Boise before last year? Like, I don't really remember him at all. You put me onto him coming into 2021, and I scooped him in some spots. And I've got him in a dynasty league, and I feel awesome about that. But he got there in 19, I think. So that was his third season. Yeah. Is he just never able to stay on the field ever?
They really know. I remember his freshman year, they talked him up. He played 6 games, apparently. I'm looking at it, but he never really did a whole lot. I guess injuries last year was that was so annoying because
but he's different, dude. Like running routes, separating from guys. You get the ball in his hand and it's over. Like I love that dude.
Yeah, he's definitely. I'm actually shocked he was there too. But again, maybe that's just like I was saying earlier, more Power 5 bias where they weren't even thinking him. Like when we get there, he's going to be top of the list, probably top 15, probably.
My bet would be if you went back and looked at his game logs and just scouted the stat line, it's not as impressive as we remember. Outside of like a spike here, a spike there, right, maybe one more spike, but like a ton of whatever in between because of injuries, because of warming up, maybe playing 10 plays. Like the overall stat line for the year and the individual game logs, like it's not that impressive, but like if you were there,
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go ahead and push through here. So, Chris, who did you take?
Chris Smith, running back, the last man standing at Louisiana. I mean, I feel like it's only going to be good, right? Like the worry with him this past year was that he just always was splitting. Well, those two are gone, and they have a new coach. So, like, what's the worst that happens? He splits with unproven running backs? Or, like, that feels like a good scenario for me. Or, best case, the coach recognizes the talent and just lets him be the starting running back getting 20 touches a game.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like if you told me, hey, at the end of the year, he's going to outperform Alton McCaskill, I'd be like, okay, I guess he saw a volume and that was all that needed to happen, right? Like the dude's obviously like talented, and every time he got serious workloads, he seemed to deliver. So, I mean, it's a good bet to make, I think.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and in the 6th round, it's my pick.
Oh.
So I can make
double up.
I've been holding this for like 30 minutes. It's been my pick for about 30 minutes.
Earning the red shirt first and second.
So I'm going back to the Kent State well, and I'm bringing in Marquez Cooper as my running back, my third running back. I think in that offense it was Cephas and Cooper. That was it, right? As far as skill positions go. So, and I've had him in Dynasty for these 2 years, and I think I'm going to stick with him here. How do y'all feel about that?
I did not expect that he would see 20, 30 carries. Like the dude is like 5'5", 150. Like he's that. I think I think that is his dimensions.
5'7", 184. But yeah, go ahead.
Which means he's like 5'5".
And it's not like they have no other talent in that backfield. Someone just transferred out. I think maybe Bradford and Joaquin Bangda, who was like their biggest recruit ever. I think he was like high 3 or 4-star recruit. Like he's gone too. But who's the other guy? They have other running backs also who are talented, and it seemed like they're cool just letting those guys sit on the bench and letting Cooper do his thing a lot of weeks. I don't really understand it. I guess in the construct of an individual drive, it makes a ton of sense because they go so fast. They just want to snap. But like there were games I felt like where he was getting 80% of the carries outside of the quarterback, right? Which just, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know why you would project that to happen given the kind of some of the realities that I mentioned. But
he's the perfect size for the offense because you can't see him. They go no huddle.
Yeah.
You can like literally do like that little play action and go deep to Cephas where you just hand it off to him, and before you know it, he's 10 yards down the field.
Yeah, I mean, dude was great.
That.
Fantastic. And then I'm coming back. I get back-to-back picks. That just occurred to me too, so I had to like scramble to get one. I'm going with another guy that I have in Dynasty, Ali Jennings from Old Dominion.
I saw his stats. I ran across his stats the other day looking up just random players I should consider. What a good move by him to go to ODU from West Virginia.
Yeah.
That was like
crazy. The first 3 games, he did basically nothing.
Yeah,
and
he was like 20 yards a catch or something.
His first game against Wake Forest, 2 catches, 17 yards. Second game against Hampton, 2 catches, 45 yards. Third game at Liberty, 1 catch, 4 yards. He ended up with over 1,000 yards receiving in the season. So,
great.
One of our 3 or 4 listeners who commented about the Google podcast thing, Justice. I think he's the ODU super fan in Mike's Discord, right? And so like a maniac, I have push notifications on for every single thing just to make sure that I can. And so like I'll follow all the individual team channels and stuff. And he said that at some point in the middle of the year, they either canned or just demoted the OC. And I think that the head coach just started calling plays. And you could see the script flip when they pulled Daryl Mack, put in, I guess, Hayden Wolf, and changed up who was calling the plays. And just, I mean, I guess it more or less became any given play, flip a 3-sided coin, and it's going to be Blake Watson, Kuntz the tight end, or Ali Jennings, which is, I mean, that's an awesome way to live for us, right? Like, just give us known outcomes for college fantasy, and that makes the situation interesting.
All we want.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
something
here.
I didn't know all of that you just revealed on here, but that makes sense because there was a stark difference from how the season started to how it closed out because he was their best playmaker from like half.
Is this gonna be like the first year ever we get 3 ODU picks and like a 9, like in the first 100 picks? Like, where do we see Blake Watson? Is he back?
Imagine if he keeps his wide receiver eligibility.
Yeah. I mean, Kuntz was already taken. We already have. This is the second ODU guy. Think about all the different. This is why I love fantasy college football so much. Michigan's got 1 guy picked, and ODU's got 2. You know, like, think about that. Georgia, 1 guy picked, right? Just Bowers.
Yeah.
Incredible.
But, well, would you take – well, I mean, he went in this mock draft, but would you take the tight end if it weren't tight end premium?
If it were or weren't? This is not, right?
It's not? Like, would you take him?
This is a January 31st mock. I'm guessing it's just a –
I mean, I'm being honest. Like, he's
one
one of our top tight ends. I'm just asking, like –
Jared brought up how weak tight end, at least at the outset of the offseason, seems to be. Yeah. I mean, it's if I held a gun to your head and said, come up with 5 tight ends who you like more than the ODU dude, you probably couldn't. Like, the position blows right now. I mean, things will happen, right? There will be guys that are like more obviously draftable, but will they be more interesting than Kuntz from ODU? Possibly not.
I think he'll be fine. I'm just curious, like, if obviously we'd be drafting more than 9 rounds in a regular league, but
yeah.
I would be like what you're doing, Andrew, with the quarterback. I'm just going down with the ship. Like, I'll be with the other 7 that are just waiting forever to take a tight end. Because, like, I'm not going to act like I can pick a guy in the 7th round that's going to be better than the guy in the 15th round.
Last year, my strategy at tight end netted out being try to get Cole Turner and or Dulcich. If I don't get them, wait and then miss badly on Riley Smith and Casey Kelly and Darnell Washington, or grab. I was obsessed with Marshawn Ford by the end of draft season, and I was also into Isaiah Likely. So, there's so many landmines. Like I'm sure we'll all talk ourselves into these good ideas at tight end. Like it aligns somewhat closely to NFL in that sense, right? Where like we talk ourselves into these breakout stars from tight end, and like project certainty upon them, but in reality, like so many of these guys are going to suck.
Yeah, that's most of the picks I ever make. Most of the guys just suck. Oh man! All right, well that's it for what we've picked so far in our draft. As far as Chris, did you want to talk about before we go? Austin
I think we kill it.
You kill it. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't need to do Auburn every week.
This was perfect
for next week.
Okay, cool. All right. So last thing, I promised the people I'd give them what they want. Chris, as far as hair care products, what are we working with?
It's called Fix Your Lid. It comes in this. It's got like a skull on it. I think you get it at Target. The trick here, I think, is if you saw my hair in the morning, it is. I just got a haircut. It's a little bit different, but it's never good in the morning. You got to like just get it down, and then at a certain point in the morning, maybe after your second cup of coffee, you kind of play with it a little bit, and it gets like a natural volume to it. That's the trick. You don't have to worry about it immediately. You got to just let it get there, get the low, and then you shake it around later on.
All right. Well, that's what everybody wanted.
It just makes sure you can never go wrong with too much gel.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that should be it. And I guess maybe we try to make this a Monday thing, not guaranteeing that, but I think Monday works for us a lot of times. So expect us, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever the hell we feel like it. But
exactly.
We're going to try. At least I would like to try doing Mondays if you guys are up for it, but we'll play it by ear. And that should be it. Until next time. Later, guys.
Later.
See you guys.